In under 100 days, one man was credited with more confirmed kills than any sniper in recorded history. He didn't use a scope. He barely spoke. And by the time the war caught up with him, it was almost too late. This is the story of Simo Häyhä, the farmer the Soviet army came to fear as the White Death. To understand what happened in the forests of eastern Finland, you have to understand the world it happened in. In November 1939, the Soviet Union invaded Finland. Stalin expected a quick victory. Finland had a population of under 4 million, a small standing army, and almost no modern armor. The Red Army, by comparison, brought hundreds of thousands of troops, thousands of tanks, and total air superiority. Soviet commanders reportedly told their own troops to expect the war to be over within weeks. They were wrong. Before the war, Simo Häyhä was not a soldier by trade. He was a farmer and hunter from the Kola region near the Soviet border. A quiet man, known locally for two things: patience and an unusual gift for marksmanship. He had grown up hunting in the same forests he would later fight in, learning to read wind, light, and terrain the way other men read books. When the invasion came, Häyhä joined the Finnish Army's 34th Infantry Regiment. He was in his mid-30s, older than many of the young conscripts around him, and he brought with him a rifle he already knew intimately. A Finnish-produced M28/30 fitted only with iron sights. The stretch of frontier Häyhä was assigned to would become known as the Kola Front, one of the most brutal sectors of the entire Winter War. Finnish troops were outnumbered by ratios that, in places, exceeded 10 to 1. Temperatures fell as low as -40 degrees Celsius. Soldiers on both sides fought not just each other, but frostbite, exhaustion, and the brutal Nordic winter itself. It was here that Häyhä began his work. Häyhä's approach to sniping was defined by extreme discipline rather than raw aggression. He wore all-white camouflage and often packed the snow around his firing position to prevent muzzle flash from kicking up visible clouds. He kept snow in his mouth so his breath wouldn't create a visible cloud in the freezing air. He would lie motionless in a snow position for hours, sometimes in complete silence, waiting for a single, clean shot. And critically, he refused to use a telescopic sight. This wasn't stubbornness. A scope requires the shooter to raise his head slightly higher, creating a larger silhouette and a higher risk of glare reflecting off the lens, either of which could give away a sniper's position in an instant. Iron sights let Häyhä keep a lower profile, and he trusted the accuracy of a weapon and shooting style he had used since childhood. Soviet forces began noticing that entire patrols were being picked off, one shot at a time, by a shooter they could never locate. Counter-sniper teams and even artillery strikes were reportedly directed at suspected positions, all failing to stop him. They started calling him Belaya Smrt, the White Death. For weeks, Häyhä's tally grew. Finnish military records from the war credit him with more than 500 kills using a rifle alone in a period of fewer than 100 days, a number that, when combined with kills from a submachine gun he also used later in the war, some estimates place even higher. Because Finnish sniper counts were officially verified by unit commanders at the time, rather than claimed by the sniper himself, historians generally regard the rifle total as one of the most reliably documented sniper records of the 20th century. By the final weeks of the war, Häyhä had become something close to legend among his own countrymen, and a source of genuine dread within Soviet ranks. But the war wasn't done with him yet. On March 6, 1940, just days before the war's end, Häyhä was positioned along the front when he was struck in the jaw by an enemy round. The wound was catastrophic. Witnesses who found him afterward believed he was already dead, or close to it. The injury had destroyed part of his lower jaw and left him unrecognizable. He was pulled from the battlefield and rushed to receive medical treatment. He didn't die. Simo Häyhä regained consciousness a week later, on March 13, 1940, the same day the Winter War officially ended. He had missed the final days of the war entirely, lying unconscious while peace was signed above him. Häyhä spent months recovering and underwent extensive reconstructive treatment for his jaw. He carried the visible scar for the rest of his life. He never sought fame from what he'd done. He returned to farming, avoided interviews for decades, and rarely spoke publicly about the war. When asked later in life how he became such an effective marksman, he reportedly gave a simple answer: practice. Simo Häyhä lived until the age of 96, passing away in 2002, 62 years after the injury that should have killed him on a frozen battlefield in eastern Finland. Today, he remains one of the most extraordinary and well-documented figures in modern military history, not because he sought the title, but because, in less than 100 days, in temperatures that could kill an unprotected man in minutes, one quiet farmer became one of the deadliest snipers ever recorded. Open the archive for more.